A very controversial topic among the War Thunder community that has been discussed for a long time is whether or not planes and helicopters belong in ground RB. Many complaints have been had. Players have been upset that they cannot play a tank-only mode where they don't have to worry about a bomb dropping right on top of them, or being barraged by a salvo of rockets and cannon fire. They simply wish for a game mode where they don't have to hear the rumble of a plane or the chopping of a helicopter and groan, knowing that there's a chance to be killed defenselessly. An aircraft, whether an airplane or a helicopter, is an extremely dangerous and effective weapon in ground RP. In the hands of a skilled player, an aircraft can wipe out an entire team while being completely impervious. However, they are very vulnerable. Airplanes rely on agility and speed to remain unscathed, while helicopters can hide behind terrain, poking out to fire, then retreating back to avoid return fire. In a game mode called Ground RB, one would reasonably expect it to be a mode for exclusively ground vehicles. After all, Air RB lets players fly aircraft without worrying about player-controlled ground units. So wouldn't it be fair for Ground RB to receive a ground vehicles only mode? Apparently the developers don't think so. In a Q&A a couple of weeks back, a question was stated that read out, "Are there any reasons why there is not a permanent tank-only mode?" To which was answered with, one of the main features of War Thunder is the ability to combine in one single battle different vehicle types, and we find this mode more interesting than just single ground battles. Additionally, the game also has a lot of modes, so adding another type of ground battle on a permanent basis makes no sense from our point of view. In summary, the developers do not believe that adding a tank-only mode would be a good decision because part of the charm of War Thunder is the ability of players to control different types of vehicles and interact with each other. For example, in the naval game mode, you can control both ships and planes. In ground game modes, you can control both ground vehicles, planes, and helicopters. Their second rationale is that the game already has enough game modes and that a new one would be redundant and unnecessary. Every vehicle-based game mode that is present within War Thunder has this kind of multi-vehicle type playstyle except for one, and that one mode is the one made specifically for aviation, Air Arcade, Realistic, and Sim. Well, technically helicopters get their own mode too, but in that mode Alouettes are forced to fight Ka-50s, so that one doesn't really count. So this begs the question, why do planes get special treatment? Every single main game mode in War Thunder has a player-controlled aviation aspect to it, but no aviation game modes have a non-AI ground aspect to it. So why is that? Explanation as to why ground vehicles and planes are kept in the same game mode makes sense, especially considering one of the most popular game modes is Ground RB, which implements this type of mixed vehicle gameplay. This might not be due to the aviation aspect to the mode, however. Ground RB has one of the most complex game mechanics in the game, but that's not saying much considering that it is rather easy to understand. The main objective, like every other game mode, is to deplete the opposing team's tickets. Unlike Air RB, there is a different way to do this, and is highly encouraged in order to win. There are 3 different capture points placed around the map, of which the players are incentivized to capture. Each captured zone increases the rate of the enemy team's ticket depletion. Each destroyed enemy vehicle will take away 100 tickets from the enemy team. Nothing very difficult to understand. Naval battles are very similar, the only difference being the different map environments as well as vehicle types, obviously. Air modes consist mainly of the primary objective being the complete annihilation of the enemy team. In Air RB, a secondary objective is provided to the players in the form of the destruction of AI ground targets. There is a set amount of these targets that must be destroyed. Not all of these units are essential, however. Only units such as tanks and pillboxes that have a yellow flashing icon contribute in a significant way to the ticket counter degradation. Common counter-argument for aircraft being removed from ground modes is that you can spawn in an anti-air vehicle at the very start. While this can be an effective counter to aircraft, a lot of players don't like playing SPA for a few reasons. The first and the main reason why is because they are very ineffective at killing tanks. Obviously, there are some exceptions, such as the vehicles that can carry high penetrating rounds like the Whirlwind, or just have very big fast firing guns like the automatic or ZSU-57. Another reason is that a lot of SPAA have either poor mobility or are extremely lightly armored. Causing them to have low survivability even against aircraft. Adding on to that, frequently players who spawn in as SPAA will see little to no action whatsoever if they decide to go full anti-air mode. A lot of times the enemy team will only spawn maybe 1 to 3 aircraft the entire game. And if one or more teammate is also playing SPAA, your chances of getting a kill drop drastically. I believe that adding a secondary ground mode that prohibits the spawning of airplanes and helicopters wouldn't be a harmful addition to the game. Sure, it might split the queue times between the two modes, but in the long run it might keep older players from losing interest in the game, meaning there would be more players overall. Personally, I like the dynamic of aircraft versus ground vehicles present in Ground RB. It adds an interesting element of surprise that keeps the game exhilarating. Players being rewarded for doing good in the game via spawn points is a good system, although a bit flawed. Those who are skilled enough to earn a spawn in a plane or helicopter can have their fun attacking enemy tanks from the skies, but not unchallenged. Many threats face an aircraft in Ground RB, particularly player-controlled SPAA and enemy aircraft. This is a huge balancing factor for the aviation side of the game. It forces pilots to be aware of their surroundings and play in a way that will ensure their own safety, at the cost of kill efficiency, however. Something also worth mentioning is that planes and helis have limited fuel and ammunition. This is not too dissimilar to tanks minus the fuel, but the main difference is that in order to reload, aircraft must fly a long distance back to their airfield or helipad. This trip to rearm and refuel takes a crucially large amount of time to complete. In the time it takes a plane to land, rearm, and get back to the battlefield, the game could have gone from half tickets on each team to completely finished. In conclusion, the role of aircraft in Ground RB is a very argued over topic, of which many disagree on. I personally enjoy the aviation aspect of Ground RB as it adds a lot more interesting gameplay instances than it does annoying ones.